Hi guys, Central here and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing a big finish review of the Third Doctor Adventures, the third volume box set, starring Trim Law playing the Third Doctor, or voicing the Third Doctor, imitating John Pertwee, and Katie Manning as Jo Grant. Now, before we get into this, if you do enjoy the video, please consider liking and subscribing, as that would be greatly appreciated. And if you enjoy the video, watch the other ones like it. So for this particular box set, the earlier John Pertwee Third Doctor Adventures, they do 2 episodes on it. So we've got the Conquest of Far and the Storm of the Horfax in the episode. So I'll start with the first one, the Conquest of Far, which is a Third Doctor story set just after Planet of the Daleks in Series 10. So he's with Jo, and they've just fought the Daleks on Spyridon in that story. Now they pretty much straight after have now got to come to Far, where they've landed, and then it's basically revealed that there's another Daleks. So they basically just hit a Daleks back to back. I think this is quite a strong first episode, first story. The Doctor and Jo get split up quite quickly, quite early, which happens quite a lot in the Pertwee era. Just sort of Jo just seems to split with the Doctor. I mean, it happens in Planet of the Daleks like quite a bit. So Jo remains on Far, the planet, which it's called Far, the planet that they're on, with the Daleks now have control of them, Far, and the Doctor escapes at the end, I think it's the end of part 1, in a Dalek spaceship, and heads to the kind of forces that are heading too far to defeat them. So then the crux of it is that the Third Doctor needs to sort of figure out what's going on and stop the fleet of human defense people from entering Far, just getting absolutely massacred by the Daleks. Yeah, so then there's obviously they've split up, and that's great. And then Jo meets this other character, a new character called Doralis, I believe he's called, and she spends all her time with Doralis trying to kind of stop the Daleks. With this they have this sort of like hidden it's kind of to avoid the Daleks, detection from the Daleks, who are more advanced than the ones that Jo had just faced on Spyridon, which I thought was quite good, kind of showing how during this time the Daleks were developing, trying to get more power and stuff. With like in the Spyridon episode in Planet of the Daleks that was on TV, they were trying to get invisibility, whereas in this one they're similarly trying to gain some form of extra power with the more stronger sensors, as opposed to the eye stalk just seeing people. But they figure out throughout the whole episode, the crux of the episode is the Daleks have built this sort of weapon of sorts, and it's going to turn anyone who tries to invade, come into contact, into Robomen, which are kind of the Daleks' puppet slave things that they've used throughout the classic series, especially in the 60s in the Daleks' Invasion of Earth, and possibly the Master Plan as well. But like the Robomen are sort of very iconic in the Dalek Invasion of Earth. So the idea was in this story is the Daleks are trying to use it, and they've got this idea to create some sort of beacon that can kind of just make anyone that comes into close proximity a Roboman into the control of the Daleks, which obviously the Doctor's on his way with a full fleet at the time, he's trying to dissuade them from a full attack, but he is with a full fleet at the time. So it makes it quite an interesting story, because you're watching these two kind of stories at the same time, and they're about to converge in a point, and obviously you're watching Jo Grant sort of figure out what's going on Far. Meanwhile, the Doctor is equally like trying to figure out what's going on. But he's on this spaceship, like by himself. I mean, without companion, with these other characters that sort of want to believe him but don't really want to believe him. That sort of thing, which is, to be honest, quite a lot of the Third Doctor adventures and most Doctor adventures, really, where the Doctor's just sort of on another place. Speaking of the Doctor, he's voiced in this stuff and all of my Third Doctor adventures. I think most of the Third Doctor stuff by Tim Treloar, who plays the John Pertwee. He's basically playing John Pertwee, playing the Third Doctor, and he voices it brilliantly. His voice is so uncanny, and it's crazy how Big Finish managed to get so many great actors to kind of voice them, other characters, because later on in the adventures they have Elizabeth Sladen's daughter voicing her, and she's brilliant, and Daisy Ashford's, who's Caroline John's daughter, I believe, voicing Liz Shaw, and again, brilliant. They've got, later on, not in this box set per se, but later on they've got John Culshaw, I believe, voicing the Brigadier, and he sounds like it's Nicholas Courtney. But in this box set, Tim Treloar in Conquest of Thought and Storm of the Horfax, equally, he voices them brilliantly. And in the other stuff that I've listened to of his stuff later, in the other subsequent stuff that I've listened to already, equally, he is so good at kind of getting it that you wouldn't realise it's not him. Obviously, then equally, Jo Grant still can play, Jo Grant, Katie Manning can still play Jo Grant like that. She's still Jo Grant, which is crazy. She's playing Jo Grant brilliantly, and it's quite nice because they've because this is quite clearly a direct, sequel almost to the Planet of the Daleks. It's clear that they've sort of gone back over what the characters were at, where they were at, how they were feeling, and at the end of Planet of the Daleks, Jo Grant's quite ready to go home. She doesn't really want to be there. She's quite tired of being in space, and in this episode, Jo Grant, Katie Manning really sells that sort of Jo Grant's really not wanting to be there. She really just wants to go home, because between Planet of the Daleks, where Jo Grant says she wants to kind of go home, and Green Death, the final story in season 10, there's quite like a gap where they don't really explain when they don't see them going back to Earth, sort of thing. So I think it's great they've slotted this in here, and the actors have really just rolled with it, and they've done really well. So yeah, Conquest of Thought, brilliant story, great Dalek story. I'd argue just as good as the stuff on screen for Pertwee in terms of Dalek stories. Then the second story in the box set, The Storm of the Horfax, is in equal parts a great story. Closer to a more typical one. It's another 4-parter, which is nice, and it's a unit story, though I think unfortunately for especially maybe the early stuff, is I haven't reviewed the first 2 box sets for the Third Doctor Adventures, mainly because I only own the first one, and I've listened to only the first story, and it's partially narrated, which makes them a bit different. I like the more full cast ones, so I prefer listening to these. But for the first box set, they had Mike Yates as actor, so Mike Yates was in it, but not until, I think it's the 6th box set, maybe the 5th box set actually, maybe the 5th one, there's not really, they don't have John Culshaw playing Brigadier, so there isn't really a clear unit presence, but it is a unit-ish story. I believe Jacob Dubman, who has gone on to voice Matt Smith for the 11th Doctor perfectly, and I'll review those subsequently, and also voices the 10th Doctor and even the 9th Doctor, I believe, in the Companion Chronicle stuff. Not the Companion Chronicle stuff, Companion Chronicle stuff on Big Finish, which of the 11th Doctor Adventures and that stuff. 11th Doctor Chronicles, the 10th Doctor Chronicles, and the 9th Doctor Chronicles by Jacob Dubman, and he voices those brilliantly. Also the 12th Doctor as well, I believe, and they're brilliantly voiced. He voices a unique character in this Storm of Horfax. But on the story itself, it's basically the Doctor and Jo have kind of stumbled across this sort of like alien person, alien threats in this military base, and they sort of do the whole kind of time. It's a very timey kind of base story with like it's a whole paradox and stuff, because the person, the Horfax figure, has this weird link to Joe, but they sort of want to destroy the world, sort of thing, which makes it quite odd. So there's this alien called Arianda, I think she's called, and she's kind of like been found by this submarine, and the Doctor and Joe go to the submarine to kind of help, as because they're part of units, so they're like the secret, like they're the people who you'd get for those aliens. They are the Ghostbusters for any extraterrestrial stuff. And then as the story goes on, they sort of build up to this sort of thing of the Horfax are some sort of elite, sort of like fighting body, where basically they'll go to a planet and they'll ravage a planet, destroy a planet, and then they'll make their people, they'll kind of mind wash the people who've survived into Horfax soldiers. So Horfax isn't necessarily a race, it's a kind of accumulation of lots of different races who've been mind washed or brainwashed into fighting for this kind of like, the elites of the people who like control them. And so they've supposedly, on the surface it appears that initially they've come to capture Arianda, and there's like this big threat, and the Doctor needs to try and put a stop to it. Plot twist in the episode, turns out Arianda is one of the people who controls the Horfax, and she basically then, plot twist, says how they're there to now take over Earth. And yeah, it's a good, I think it's a nice plot twist. It sort of then changes the dynamic of it, and I think it puts it in a good way. They then do sort of more timey-wimey stuff with the fact that the boat goes missing, and one of the unit soldiers who's in it, he just disappears from existence. And obviously the Doctor, similar to just other times, the Doctor has kind of had like paradoxes unfold in time, like I suppose Series 5 with Matt Smith and the Big Bang and the Pandora opens. The Doctor remembers the unit soldier, but everyone else seems to forget. And I liked how they did this, obviously. And this box came out in 2017, so this had been after, like, Rory and kind of disappearing in Series 5. And it has that sort of feel to it, in sort of that vein of, like, the Doctor can remember. But it does it differently, and where it feels quite nice. It's like, I think it works quite well. And then they move, and then obviously the Doctor manages to stop the Horfax. They push them away and stop Arianda. And then what's quite nice is they all come back, and it all kind of almost sort of resets. And I think it is done quite well. Not as good as Conquest FR in my personal opinion, but still a very strong story. And yeah, as I said, yet again, Tim Treloar nails the Tom Pertwee voice to a T. And I think Joe Grant is really good. And I think, considering this is the third box set and also the first full cast drama one, their chemistry is really strong, which is brilliant because it makes the stories a lot better. And even if there's times where you could argue maybe the stories aren't as strong because if they've slowed down a bit, those two kind of carry it, which is really nice. So yeah, overall I think this is a brilliant brilliant box set. Great two strong stories on, and I definitely give it like a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Conquest of Far probably is an 8 out of 10. Storm of Horfax probably a 7 out of 10, so probably about a 7.5 out of 10 for the complete box set. But I think it's a really good, strong kind of first full cast outing. And I've listened to a couple of the other box sets later on, and I've been listening through the 4th volume box set, which I've got here, the 4th one, which is got the Tyrants of Logic and the Rise of the New Humans on. I've been listening through Rise of the New Humans today, ready for a review, hopefully for next week. So that be out hopefully next week. But yeah, this one here, Conquest of Far, Storm of Horfax, great strong first outing, and can only build and only get better. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed the big finish reviews. I think the big finish stuff has been really good, and I've been really enjoying listening to the big finish stuff, so hopefully I'll get some more reviews out of the big finish stuff soon. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, as it does help me out and make me know that people want to see more big finish reviews. But yeah, I'll see you on the next one.